Yeah, I'll react to that, sure.
To the north is the Baltic
Preemptive like, hey guys, hope you're doing well. Let's learn, shall we, why Russia tried to block this canal.
Sea, an important waterway home to several ports and a connection for surrounding countries. Now take a look at this tiny slither of land right here between Lithuania.
The original link, if you guys just want to watch it yourself, haven't seen it, whatnot, top of the description as always.
Poland. Now take a look at this tiny slither of land right here between Lithuania and Poland. That's Kaliningrad, a Russian exclave that serves as the country's only ice-free port on the sea. The zone is causing a bit of tension with its neighbours when it comes to trade and travel. You see, for ships to access this port in Poland, they first had to pass through Russian-controlled waters, something that, after years of problems, Poland didn't really want to do anymore. So, starting in 2019, officials built this, the Vistula Canal. At over a kilometre long, the new channel now allows Polish ships to avoid passing through the Russian Strait. It's a $450 million construction project that Russia really wasn't happy about. In fact, it even tried to stop the canal from being built at all. You may remember back in 2021 when a news story about a certain container ship went viral.
There's a ship stuck in the Suez Canal and it's me.
Look at all these ships. They can't get through.
Oh no.
For 6 days, the Ever Given halted trade through the Suez Canal, which heavily impacted global supply chains. While it was temporary, the incident highlighted the importance of canals to the world's economy and shipping industry. These routes provide more direct shortcuts through land masses and cut down time and costs when it comes to trade. And in the case of the new Vistula Canal in Poland, they can also be a strategic move. Before its construction, ships headed towards the port of Elbląg had to take a
Is that how they get through? They're towed by these things, or do they have some other
move? Before its construction, ships headed towards the port of Elbląg had to take a detour through this strait off Kaliningrad. And because Russia controlled this area, it often shut down the strait or charged ships to pass through it, making Poland reluctantly dependent on its not-so-favourite neighbour. So, in 2019, Poland began construction on a canal through this stretch of land known as the
I'm curious, what can the Russians possibly come up with as like a legitimate excuse to have to like warrant trying to stop them building this, just because, well, they're not gonna pay us anymore and we can't shut stuff down randomly.
The new canal would decrease the country's reliance on Russian permissions while also creating a faster and shorter route that would ultimately save time and money. And that freedom from Russian influence became especially important following the invasion of Ukraine. Now, before we get into the details, you should know that designing a canal like this requires engineers and construction workers to have a pretty strong grasp of STEM subjects. But if that's something that normally...
If you guys are interested and you heard it here, please make sure to use their promo codes and links, guys.
Makes your head start to swim, there's a new way to learn that's fun, easy, and free to start. A tight lock on mathematics and physics are necessary for any civil engineer. This week's video sponsor, Brilliant, has courses that easily break down complex concepts into quick lessons that are simple to follow and will get you afloat in no time. It's a great way to visualize problems and solutions, like understanding formulas for hydraulic systems. Brilliant has thousands of lessons which help to break down complicated subjects, ranging from the fundamentals like calculus to something like data analysis, which could help you level up your career.
I wasn't a great student, but I did okay for my standard my senior year. I did pretty well. So going into college of high school, and so going into college, I felt sort of good about myself and like, oh, engineering sounds awesome. Once you get into the more difficult math, I'm just like, oh, I can't do this.
To get
I'd like
started,
to give it another
try a
though.
free 30-day offer
Not
by visiting brilliant.org/the B1M or by clicking the link in the description. The first 200 people to sign up will receive a 20% discount off their annual subscription. Now, let's dive into exactly how this canal was constructed. Workers began by excavating the 2-kilometre wide stretch of land which encloses the lagoon. The dug up sand would create a space for the new channel. Once cleared, the remaining slopes were straight strengthened with a geogrid synthetic material and topsoiling in order to prevent erosion. The excavated stand was first stored in piles, but instead of being carried off, it was used to create a new artificial island. That 5-kilometre wide island began as an empty ring until it was slowly filled up with the transported earth and ultimately became a nesting ground for birds. As dredging continued, construction of the breakwaters began to take shape. These are permanent structures built out into the water to hold back swells and tides.
Okay.
Workers drove in sheet piles near the base, a type of vertical steel retaining wall. To strengthen the structures, over 10,000 concrete blocks ranged.
I wasn't sure why you'd really need an artificial harbor, since it's not exactly the actual port is well protected, more through the canal and inland, but I'm sure it just makes it easier for ships to go through without incident if you have calmer water. So
back
makes
swells
sense.
and tides. Workers drove in sheet piles near the base, a type of vertical steel retaining wall. To strengthen the structures, over 10,000 concrete blocks ranging from about 2 to nearly 10 tons in weight were interlocked. Blocks like this are used on all sorts of coastal infrastructure, but a special design was used on the Vistula Canal. Unlike its predecessors, each block had a hole in the middle to reduce water pressure and increase stability throughout the wall. It also enabled faster and more accurate installation, with up to 100 blocks a day being put into place. When completed, the western side reached over 500 metres long, with the eastern side running to over 1,000 metres. At the centre of the whole project is the lock. Because the bay and lagoon have different water levels, the lock serves as a sort of boat elevator that raises and lowers the water so ships can pass through the...
Oh, it was such a relatively short canal that they built. I know it said like 2 kilometers long, but... So, building a lock system is actually more cost-effective than just lowering that strip of land you're trying to clear out to make it all level. And how much higher could it have... Okay, so it's clearly that much more expensive and difficult to just keep digging than it is to introduce the locks, even though the locks might slow it down.
Channel
compared to a flat
The Vistula
street.
Canal lock is a 270-metre system of 4 gates, each weighing about 160 tons. Each one can be moved along a set of rails using a series of ropes. Once a boat enters the lower part of the lock, the first of these steel gates closes behind it, stopping any water from exiting the chamber.
How do they make it so watertight?
When a section within the upper gate opens, water flows into the lower section and raises the ship to the height of the upper portion of the canal. After it reaches an equal level, the next set of gates open and the ship finally goes through to the other side. But of course, ships aren't the only thing that need to move along this channel. That would be too easy. The Vistula Canal also has taken...
Wait a second. Are you telling me that whole... Wait a second. Okay. We are at 5:39. You're telling me that this whole strip of water is higher in level than the regular Baltic Sea? That makes a lot more sense that they would need a lock system then. Okay, I thought they were doing a lock system so that they wouldn't have to dig all the way down here and just kind of went up and then down, but it goes up and then stays up.
They first...
Where was I? 4, 5...
Stop finally goes through to the other side. But of course, ships aren't the only thing that need to move along this channel. That would be too easy. The Vistula Canal also has to take into account another type of traffic. Be too easy.
Those are the locks?
Vistula Canal.
Wait, so you... What?
Also has to take into account another type of traffic, cars. The solution? A road system consisting of not 1 but 2 swinging bridges over the lock. Commonly built in canals, swing bridges typically rotate about 90 degrees.
Wait, so you need the gate to be watertight in the bottom, right? Because it has to be watertight on all 3 sides, right? That's what my intuition says. But maybe there's some physics reason why... No, because the water would want to become level. Huh?
around a centre point. When a vessel needs to travel through at the Vistula, each bridge swings open alternately. Ever since the canal opened in 2022, the Polish government has celebrated its success. Russia, on the other hand, has not been so happy.
What is their excuse?
According to Polish government officials, Russia feared the strengthened independence and sovereignty that Poland would gain from the project. For years, Russian news outlets have published reports criticising the scheme. They cited
I don't want to just say Russia, maybe. I'm sure the United States, any kind of big power, might kind of screw over others when it's really just their own interests, but come on. I thought they were going to have some, like, oh, it's going to have an ecological, does that, like, make up something. I thought they would have a reason other than just like, yeah, we wanted more power over them, and this is not making them, is making them a little more free and getting out of this port.
Environmental concerns, alleging the
project... I spoke too soon. Environmental concern. Guys, there's a...
It would drive local species of birds and fish towards extinction.
I'm sure that's what you're worried about, Russia.
A waste of money. After all, the canal is not deep enough yet to allow large cargo ships to pass through. Therefore, according to Russian coverage, the investment put in would never reap the returns.
You can't say, like, first thing, yes, it'll weaken our power a bit over Poland, and then say, oh, also ecological reasons.
Other narratives included how the canal was a direct military threat and an illegal project under EU regulations. The Polish government has denied these accusations, saying the Kremlin is pushing false propaganda. And depending on who you ask, the truth kind of depends and ultimately sits somewhere between the two camps. In a report by The Guardian...
Yes, I'm sure Russia doesn't go forward with any projects that might have a slim ecological impact.
Experts said the canal would only have minimal environmental impacts. But on the economic side, only about 12 medium ships can go through the canal daily, and according to a study by a Polish university, it would take 650 years to make a return. But the plan is to deepen it eventually to allow for larger ships.
And it's not just about an economic return that you're going after, it's for more sovereignty from leaving this port against more sovereignty from Russia having control. So just arguing a economic reason doesn't, as the only thing to make it be like, okay, it's not worth it, doesn't make a lot of sense.
In the end, despite Russia's multiple attempts at stopping the Vistula Canal, they ultimately failed. And in a seemingly symbolic move, the canal's opening coincided with the anniversary of when Soviet troops invaded Poland during World War II. Stories like this show how construction projects can become manifestations of the relationships between countries. Infrastructure like the Channel Tunnel or Gordie Howe Bridge can connect allies, but not all countries are looking to strengthen their connection.
Nice grass.
Today, the Vistula Canal stands not only as a new pathway for ships, but as a lasting symbol of independence for Poland. This video was sponsored by Brilliant. You can learn more about that at the link below. Don't forget that we're inspiring the next generation of builders through our investment into Brickborrow, a fantastic Lego subscription service. You can learn more and get started today over at brickborrow.com.
As the more I kind of learn about just stuff in general, I guess, just kind of the world I like to learn about, the more I see that laws are just guidelines. Like, and the more powerful people that are trying to, follow the same laws will, like, laws can be used. You can always say, oh, I'm just following the law. But you can go after more stuff by picking parts of a law and say that you're being genuine, but really you're just trying to get something stopped. And I'm not excluding the USA from this, okay? I'm sure we've done terrible, one-sided, unfair thing. I know for a fact we have. But everything's just a guideline. It's like you still have leeway to bully others within the law. And I think sometimes this is a dangerous road to go down. Sometimes you just got to be like, no, I see what you're doing. But then again, I understand the hesitancy to doing that because then you set a precedent that you can just be like, well, I don't believe you. And then that's the end of that conversation. So I'm not following this law. But sometimes it's so obvious that you got to just be like, really? That you're pulling out these reasons for not getting this canal. It's not that it hurts your power. And I want to say, I'm no fan of Russia, obviously, but this doesn't just go for Russia. It goes for U.S. and other countries as well that I'm sure aren't happy when countries get a little more sovereignty. Love you all. Hope you guys are all doing well. Would appreciate any answers to any of the questions I had, any comments at all. And hopefully I'll see you next video. Bye, guys.